I clutched the freshly printed prenatal test results, standing outside my apartment door. My key was in the keyhole, but I couldn't bring myself to turn it. Then I heard faint sounds from inside, like a poison dart piercing my ears. A woman's delicate laugh, somewhat familiar. After listening closely, I realized it was the voice of my best friend, Tiffany. And the man's low groans were my husband Marcus's. Deep in my abdomen, the little one, whose existence had just been confirmed, seemed to flinch with me. I gasped, using all my strength to swallow the metallic taste rising in my throat. I forced myself to stay calm. I couldn't just rush in like a raging shrew. Marcus, my husband, in the eyes of others, a refined, successful young talent. Tiffany, my confidant and best friend, with whom I'd stayed in the city to build our lives after graduation, sharing everything. When did they start seeing each other? I leaned against the wall and slowly sank to the floor, the prenatal test results crumpled in my palm. Marcus, what if Grace suddenly comes back? Tiffany's voice, husky with desire, cut through the door. Marcus scoffed. She's so predictable, she's probably still waiting in line for her checkup at the clinic right now. Besides, what if she does come back? Oh, don't talk about Grace like that. After all, Tiffany didn't finish her sentence. Marcus cut her off, his tone even colder. She's just a frumpy housewife who only knows her way around the kitchen. If it weren't for her helping me build from the ground up back then, I would have divorced her ages ago. The rest of his words were drowned out by more fervent sounds. So, in his eyes, I was just a frumpy housewife. My nails dug deep into my palm, the sharp pain bringing a sliver of clarity. I slowly stood up, folded the prenatal test results, and put them in my pocket. Then I pulled out my phone and, using the reflection of the dark screen, looked at myself. My face was pale, with faint dark circles under my eyes. My hair was tied back casually, and I wore the simplest, slightly faded loungewear. Indeed, I looked dull and lifeless. Compared to Tiffany inside, I certainly fell short. I took a deep breath, gently pulled out the key, and put it back in my purse. I turned and walked away from this place that I had once considered my haven, but which now reeked of betrayal. My footsteps echoed eerily clearly in the empty hallway. A moment later, my phone vibrated frantically in my purse, Marcus's name flashing on the screen. I turned it off. The world finally fell silent. I stopped by the river, gazing at the shimmering water. I noticed there was still a debit card in my purse. A card I had long forgotten. It held all the savings I'd fiercely accumulated in the years before my marriage, as well as the money from selling my first award-winning design. It wasn't a lot, just over $200,000. When started his business, I had unhesitatingly emptied my savings to support him, keeping only this one card. Perhaps it was a last flicker of unease deep inside me, or merely a surviving instinct for self-preservation. It became my only lifeline now. I went to the nearest bank and transferred all the money from that card to another one that only I knew about. Then, I found a clean, affordable motel to stay in. Sitting in the cramped hotel room, staring at the bare walls, a huge sense of emptiness belatedly swept over me, almost consuming me. The two people I trusted most had conspired to stab me through the heart. Fear, bewilderment, fury, despair. Emotions swirled and crashed like boiling magma in my chest. I turned on my phone. Dozens of missed calls, and my text messages inbox was bombarded. From Tiffany. Marcus, Grace. Where are you? Why aren't you answering your phone? Did you finish your checkup? Answer your phone. Don't be so dramatic. Is something wrong at the clinic? Text me back quickly. Tiffany, Grace? What's wrong? You're not answering your phone. Or replying to texts. I'm so worried. Where are you? Grace, don't scare me. Please text back. Did you argue with Marcus? Grace, if you see this message, please call me back. I'm so worried about you. Staring at the messages on the screen, my stomach was churning. Revolting hypocrisy. I didn't reply to a single one. The next morning, I went straight to a reputable law firm downtown. I was met by Ms. Evelyn, an attorney in her 40s with sharp eyes and a capable demeanor. Ms. Grace, what is your request? Ms. Evelyn asked directly after I finished my calm account. Divorce. As quickly as possible. My voice was a little hoarse, but exceptionally clear. I only want the assets I owned before the marriage. Also, he committed marital infidelity, and I will find a way to provide evidence. Ms. Evelyn nodded, a hint of approval in her eyes. Are you sure you want to leave empty-handed, foregoing all marital assets? Under marital law, even if your spouse is at fault, you are entitled to half of the marital assets. I gave a cold, faint smile. That money carries the stench of their affair. I find it repulsive. Ms. Evelyn didn't try to persuade me further. Understood. Gathering evidence will take time. In the meantime, protect yourself. Stepping out of the law firm, the sunlight was a bit dazzling. I squinted and walked towards the subway station. For the next few days, I was like a ghost. By day, I went to clean the old apartment inherited from my parents, which was under my name before marriage. It had been vacant, the rent money supplementing our household. Now, it was my place. At night, I returned to that cold home, playing the role of a dull wife, unaware of my husband's affair and my best friend's betrayal. I needed evidence. Photos or videos of them caught red-handed would be the most powerful. Marcus was initially uneasy, showing me excessive concern and attentiveness, trying to gauge my reactions. Tiffany also frequently invited me out to clear my head or to talk, subtly probing. I behaved as if everything was normal, even a bit more docile than usual. But when he tried to touch me, I firmly pushed him away, citing not feeling well. His eyes flickered, and he didn't insist, probably finding it less troublesome. My silence and ignorance clearly made them drop their guard. Just 1 week later, Marcus called me, his voice laced with feigned affection. Grace, I have a very important last-minute business dinner tonight, entertaining some clients from out of town. I might be late, so don't wait up for me, go to bed early. Okay, got it. Don't drink too much. My tone was flat. After hanging up, I stared at my phone screen, my heart pounding heavily in my chest. A business dinner with Tiffany at a hotel, right? I had checked the booking records on his phone. It was at a 5-star hotel not far from home. 10 p.m. I appeared near that hotel, dressed in dark clothes, wearing a hat and a mask. In my hand, I clutched the private investigator's contact information Ms. Evelyn had helped me get. After much hesitation, I still didn't dial the number. Some things, I had to witness with my own eyes and put an end to myself. Time ticked by second. Closer to 11:30, two familiar figures finally emerged from the hotel's revolving door. Marcus had his arm around Tiffany's waist. She was practically pressed against him, looking up at him with a beaming smile. Marcus leaned down to whisper something in her ear, making her playfully hit him. I stood in the shadows of the street corner, took out my phone, and turned on the video recording function. The camera was steady, clearly capturing their entire exit from the hotel, Marcus thoughtfully opening the car door for Tiffany, and the two of them getting into his car and driving away. Only when the familiar taillights completely vanished in traffic did I lower my stiff arm. After saving the video, I stood there for a long time. Only when my hands and feet were numb with cold did I slowly turn and head towards the subway station. It was past 1 a.m. when I got home. The living room light was on. Marcus was back. He was sitting on the sofa in his pajamas, holding his tablet, seemingly working on emails. Hearing the door open, he looked up, his face showing a perfectly measured weariness and a hint of imperceptible tension. "You're back? What took you so long?" He stood up, his voice tinged with concern. I looked at him, saying nothing. My gaze swept over the collar of his pajamas, where a small, unsmudged lipstick stain, not mine, was visible. "What's wrong? You look so pale. Are you still not feeling well?" He took 2 steps closer, reaching to touch my forehead. I sidestepped, avoiding him. The movement made his smile falter. "Nothing," I said, my voice dry, and walked straight to the bedroom. "I'm tired, I'm going to bed." He called out to me from behind, his voice heavy. "Grace, shouldn't we talk tomorrow?" I tossed back, and closed the bedroom door. Leaning against the cold door, I heard his suppressed fury in the living room as he paced back and forth. I took out my phone and sent the video I had just recorded, along with screenshots of the hotel booking records I had backed up earlier, to Ms. Evelyn. "Ms. Evelyn, I have all the evidence. Please proceed as quickly as possible." Message sent. The divorce process was smoother than I expected, but also uglier than I'd anticipated. When Evelyn threw a thick stack of evidence in front of Marcus and his high-priced attorney, the color drained from Marcus's face instantly. Shock, humiliation, and then, explosive fury. He pointed at me, his finger trembling. "Grace, you spied on me? You set me up? You evil woman." Tiffany didn't dare show her face. I heard Marcus had ripped into her, blaming her carelessness, blaming her for putting him in such a vulnerable position. At the negotiating table, Marcus shed all pretense of affection. He accused me of being calm, placent and unmotivated, of being unable to help his career, and even of having a dull, uninteresting personality that suffocated him. His eyes bloodshot, he roared, "Tiffany is young, beautiful, energetic, and good at networking. She can help me. And you? You're just a useless burden. His attorney tried to stop him several times, but he roughly pushed them away. Ms. Evelyn remained calm throughout, softly reminding him, Mr. Marcus, please watch your words. They will all be considered by the court. I sat across from him, watching him calmly. Only after he had finished his tirade did I speak, my voice utterly devoid of emotion. Marcus, are you done talking? If so, sign the papers. I only want the items on my premarital asset list and those 200,000 in savings. I don't want a single penny of any assets under your name. We'll call it even. My words stunned both him and his attorney. Clearly, they had prepared for me to demand a hefty sum and half of his fortune. You only want this? Marcus asked, disbelieving. Yes. I nodded, picking up the pen. Once you sign, we will never see each other again. Finally, under Ms. Evelyn's professional guidance, the divorce agreement was signed and notarized with utmost speed. The day I walked out of the county clerk's office, I held the dark green divorce decree in my hand, a thin document that felt as heavy as 1,000 pounds. Marcus stood a few steps away, watching me with a somber expression. Grace, he called out to me, his tone condescending, tinged with a pity that felt like charity. It's not too late to regret. If you just admit your mistake and promise to behave yourself from now on, for the sake of our 10 years of marriage, I can. Marcus, I cut him off. You know what? You're truly disgusting right now. His face instantly changed. Without another glance at him, I turned and strode towards a taxi waiting by the roadside. I pulled open the car door and got in. Driver, to the city's maternity hospital, please. The driver acknowledged, and the car merged into traffic. I leaned back in the seat, closed my eyes, and gently placed a hand over my abdomen. Baby, I'm sorry that you have to face such indignity the moment you enter this world. But don't be afraid. Mommy will take you, and we'll live again. Live to show everyone. The first thing I did after getting the divorce decree was to register at the clinic. The doctor looked at my medical report, frowning slightly. Your progesterone levels are a bit low. Have you experienced significant emotional distress recently? Been through something traumatic? I nodded silently. It's crucial to rest and maintain emotional stability. Low progesterone levels can lead to miscarriage, so I'll prescribe some medication for you to take regularly. Come back in a week for a follow-up, the doctor said, scribbling on a form. Also, you need to eat well. You're too thin. Thank you, doctor. Walking out of the consultation room, looking at the amount on the bill and then at the 200,000 balance on my phone, I felt the heavy weight of pressure for the first time. In this city where every inch of land is precious, raising a child with this amount of money would be a drop in the bucket. I had to earn money quickly. I returned to the small old apartment. I spent a day thoroughly cleaning it, then went to a thrift store to buy the cheapest necessities. After settling in, I dug out a dusty old box from the corner. Inside were neatly stacked design sketches, award certificates from my college days and first few years of work, and several thick sketchbooks. The paper had yellowed slightly, but the lines, the concepts, the inspirations that once burned in my mind were still vivid. My fingertips brushed over the blueprints. I picked up a pen and pulled out a blank sheet of sketch paper. The pen hovered above the paper, but I couldn't bring myself to put it down. I hadn't touched my profession in a full decade. Design software had been updated countless times, and industry trends had completely transformed. My hands, accustomed to holding spatulas and kitchen knives, could they still remember the feel of a pen? A profound panic seized me, more intense than when I discovered Marcus's infidelity. I put down the pen and slumped onto the cold floor, hugging my knees. A faint pulling sensation seemed to emanate from my abdomen. No, Grace, you cannot fall apart. For the sake of the baby inside me, you must stand up. The next day, I forced myself to go out. I headed to the city's largest bookstore and plunged into the architecture design section. The latest design yearbooks, cutting-edge theories, software tutorials. I was like a parched, cracked sponge, frantically absorbing the knowledge I had missed over the past decade. I stood there all day, forgetting to eat lunch. When I got home that evening, I was dizzy and lightheaded, my stomach aching from hunger. Only then did I remember the doctor's advice: get proper nutrition. I walked into the small kitchen, saw the empty fridge, and realized I hadn't bought groceries yet. A profound sense of exhaustion and loneliness washed over me. I leaned against the refrigerator door and slowly sank to the floor, tears silently hitting the ground. I cried silently for a long time, until I was breathless from crying, until a dull discomfort returned to my lower abdomen. I abruptly stopped crying and vigorously wiped my face. I pushed myself up from the refrigerator, took a few deep breaths. I pulled out my phone and quickly ordered eggs, milk, vegetables, and meat on the food delivery app. Then, I sat at my old desk and opened my laptop. I downloaded the latest design software and, following tutorials, awkwardly began to relearn, step by step. The light was dim, and the keyboard clattered. Outside the window, the city's neon lights flickered. My new life, in this small apartment less than 40 square meters, restarted with difficulty, accompanied by morning sickness, physical exhaustion, and trepidation about the future. In the days that followed, my morning sickness worsened. The smell of cooking would send me reeling, vomiting until I was dizzy. To save money, I had to force myself to cook. Operating the design software was frustratingly unfamiliar. A simple modeling command that I once did effortlessly now required checking tutorials multiple times. The hardest part was getting tasks. I had no portfolio, and the 10-year gap on my resume was a fatal flaw. Online applications for freelance design tasks fell on deaf ears. When I tried reaching out to old contacts in the design world, most gave no word, and the occasional reply was distant and polite. Just as I was about to be overwhelmed by anxiety and morning sickness, an unexpected person contacted me. It was my university mentor, Professor Grace. Professor's voice was still strong on the phone, tinged with concern. I heard from Arthur that you've been looking for design work recently. Are you in some trouble? Hearing my esteemed mentor's voice, my nose stung, and tears almost fell. I choked back a sob. Professor. Yes, I got divorced. I need work now. There was a few seconds of silence on the line. Sigh. That Marcus. Professor sighed. Well, as long as you're all right. Don't worry about work. Actually, I have an old friend, Ethan, who runs a rather large architectural design firm. He's currently working on a challenging project and needs some help. I told him about you, and he was very interested after seeing your old industrial museum design. He wants you to give it a try. I was overwhelmed by the enormous surprise. Really? Professor, thank you so much. But I haven't worked on a project in 10 years, I'm afraid. Afraid of what? Professor interrupted me, his tone filled with undeniable encouragement. I know the spark and grit you had back then. This is an opportunity, Grace, seize it. I'll text you the address and contact person, go there direct. TLY tomorrow. Okay. Thank you, Professor. I'll do my best. I replied quickly. After hanging up the phone, I was so excited I paced around the small living room several times. The baby in my abdomen seemed to sense my joy, moving gently. Perhaps it was my imagination, but it gave me immense strength. Ethan's architectural firm. The name alone sounded prestigious. The next day, I deliberately put on the most formal, yet oldest, black suit skirt from my closet, trying to conceal the weariness of early pregnancy. I applied light makeup and, carrying my newly organized and printed design portfolio featuring my early works, I set off for the address with a mix of anxiety and anticipation. The firm was located on the top floor of a downtown skyscraper. After being announced by the front desk, I was led into a spacious office. Behind the desk sat a man. He was looking down at documents, his profile as sharp as if carved from a knife. His entire demeanor radiated a chilling, unapproachable aura. Hearing the movement, he looked up. Our eyes met. They were incredibly deep eyes, dark and fathomless like a cold abyss. His gaze was sharp, scrutinizing. My heart clenched slightly, and I instinctively straightened my back. Hello, Mr. Ethan, I'm Grace. Professor introduced me. I tried to make my voice sound steady and confident. He nodded slightly, his gaze falling on the design portfolio I offered. His slender fingers opened it. The office was silent, save for the rustle of papers as he flipped through them. I stood before the desk, my palms slightly sweaty. His presence was too strong, overwhelmingly intense. And, I didn't know if it was my imagination, but his gaze seemed to linger exceptionally long when he turned to my old industrial museum design. 10 years since you worked in the field, he finally spoke, his voice devoid of emotion yet carrying an undeniable sharpness. Yes, I admitted candidly. But I've been self-studying, picking up the software and theories again. Give me a chance, and I will prove my worth. He closed the design portfolio and looked up at me, his gaze calm and unwavering. Professor highly recommended you, and your old work certainly shows vision. But the firm doesn't keep idle hands. He picked up the intercom and briefly instructed, Chloe, bring in the initial concept documents for the Cloud Eco-Resort project for Grace. Soon, a young, capable woman entered with a large stack of documents and placed them on the conference table beside me. This is one of the firm's main projects right now. The client has high demands, and the timeline is tight. Ethan stood up and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, his back to me. I'm giving you 3 days to independently produce a concept design sketch for the core area. It doesn't need to be perfect. I want to see your thought process, your ideas, how much fire you still have. 3 days to independently complete a concept design sketch for the core area. This was an entry test of hellish difficulty. The pressure bore down on me like a mountain, but I knew this was my only chance. I took a deep breath, met his scrutinizing gaze, and didn't back down. Okay, I'll give you the sketch in 3 days. Your workstation is in the open plan office. Ask Chloe to set it up. You can take the documents home to review, but sign the non-disclosure agreement first. He finished his businesslike instructions, then sat back at his desk, no longer looking at me. Thank you, Mr. Ethan. I picked up the heavy documents, signed the non-disclosure agreement, and followed Chloe out of the office. Chloe showed me to an empty workstation in the corner and brought me a spare laptop. Grace, let me know if you need anything at all, Chloe said with a professional smile. Thank you. I put my things down and eagerly opened the documents. I stared at the on-site photos and topographical maps of the quarry, my brows furrowed. A long-dormant sense of excitement, ignited by the challenge, mingled with immense pressure, quietly surged through my veins. 3 days. 3 days of non-stop work. My morning sickness was still fierce. The smell of instant ramen would make me throw up. I forced myself to drink prenatal vitamins and nibble on plain toast. When I couldn't take it anymore, I'd just rest my head on the desk for a bit. My mind was consumed by quarries, rocks, flowing water, light, and shadow. On the 3rd day afternoon, less than 3 hours remained until the deadline. My eyes were bloodshot, my face pale, and my fingers stiff and trembling from prolonged gripping of the pen and operating the mouse. The desk was covered with crumpled sketch paper, and on the computer screen, the modeling software displayed a complex interface. I had the core concept, but it felt like something was missing. That crucial spark that would make it unforgettable and deeply impactful remained elusive. Anxiety wrapped around me like a vine, tightening its grip. A dull, heavy pain also subtly emanated from my lower abdomen. I stood up, holding onto the desk, intending to pour myself a cup of hot water. Suddenly, my vision went black, and the room spun. My body swayed uncontrollably, about to fall. Watch out. A strong arm swiftly caught my arm, steadying me. Still shaken, I looked up, my gaze meeting Ethan's unfathomably deep eyes. His brow furrowed slightly, and his gaze swept over my pale face and bloodshot eyes, finally resting on the hand I had instinctively placed over my abdomen. His eyes were so sharp it was as if he had X-ray vision. He began, his voice low. I'm fine. I almost leaped back, pulling my arm away as if shocked, standing up straight. My heart was pounding, and my back was instantly drenched in cold sweat. Thank you, Mr. Ethan, I just have low blood sugar from sitting too long. This job was my and my baby's only hope. If he knew I was pregnant, he would undoubtedly kick me out without a second thought. No boss would want a pregnant woman who could go on maternity leave at any moment. Ethan didn't speak, just stared at me intently, his gaze scrutinizing. A few seconds stretched out, lasting an eternity. You have 2 hours and 45 minutes left. He finally shifted his gaze to my cluttered desk and computer screen, his tone returning to its usual coldness. Has your fire ignited yet? I composed myself, forcing myself to ignore my physical discomfort and panic, and began to explain my design, pointing to the preliminary architectural form taking shape on the computer screen. Ethan took 2 steps closer, his gaze fixed on the screen, his finger sliding on the touchpad to zoom in on details. His proximity brought an invisible pressure, but I couldn't focus on it. Once my thoughts were flowing, they were like a floodgate opening. When I finished, the office was silent, save for my slightly hurried breathing. After a long moment, he slowly raised his head, his gaze returning to my face. His eyes were no longer purely scrutinizing, they held something complex and difficult to decipher. Interesting, he said, his thin lips parting to utter 2 words. His tone was still flat, but I knew that coming from him, those 2 words were high praise indeed. Send the renderings to my email by midnight tonight. He dropped this instruction, then turned and walked out of the open plan office. Only after his figure had completely disappeared did I collapse onto my chair, my back drenched in cold sweat. I cradled my still aching lower abdomen, letting out a long, trembling breath. The concept design for the core area of the Cloud Eco Resort, like a massive stone thrown into stagnant water, stirred up quite a ripple within Ethan's architectural firm. Ethan, overcoming dissent, submitted my proposal as one of the primary directions to the highly demanding client. During the waiting period for the results, I officially became a member of the firm. But I didn't have a fixed role. Drawing construction drawings, creating renderings, even helping colleagues with modeling and rendering. The most basic and tedious tasks were all given to me. In my colleagues' eyes, I was probably just an average, quiet middle-aged woman who got in through professors' connections. I quietly endured it. Like a sponge, I seized every opportunity to learn. I diligently completed the mundane tasks others avoided. I listened quietly when others discussed proposals. During lunch breaks, while others were browsing on their phones and chatting, I was nibbling on a dry bagel and studying the latest industry case studies. My body remained a huge burden. The morning sickness had eased somewhat, but aches and pains and easy fatigue began to set in. I could only wake up earlier, leave work later, and cut back on all my rest. Occasionally, I'd run into Ethan. Sometimes in the break room, he'd be holding his coffee, his gaze fleeting over my thermos, his expression unreadable. We barely spoke, except about work. His demands on me were incredibly strict. If even a small detail wasn't perfect, he'd make me redo it. During design discussions, his questions were always the most incisive and spot on, leaving me speechless on several occasions. The pressure was immense. But strangely, under this high-pressure environment, my professional instincts, dormant for 10 years, were reactivated and sharpened one by one. That feeling of being challenged, of being pushed to constantly break through my limits, somehow brought back a long-lost sense of being alive. Half a month later, the cloud project team held a meeting to announce the client's feedback. The atmosphere in the conference room was tense. The lead designer, looking displeased, said, "The client isn't quite satisfied with any of the proposals. They specifically asked to see the direction for developing the prism of light core area concept that Grace previously proposed." All eyes immediately converged on me. There was surprise, scrutiny, but mostly disbelief and annoyance. I sat at the very end of the conference table, my heart gave a sudden leap, and I unconsciously clenched my hands in my lap. "Grace," Ethan said from the head of the table, his gaze calmly directed at me. "The client has given us an opportunity, but their demands are extremely high. You have 1 week to come up with a proposal that can convince everyone. Just tell us what resources you need." "Yes, Mr. Ethan," I replied clearly, meeting his gaze. There was no turning back. I could only push forward. This time, I wasn't fighting alone. Ethan himself took the lead, assembling a lean, capable team to assist me. The pressure increased tenfold, but the resources were also far better. I worked frantically, like a wound-up machine. Ethan was the most efficient and demanding overseer. He checked in on my progress almost daily, his questions so sharp they made my scalp tingle. Every question forced me to push the proposal towards a deeper, more robust direction. There was no room for complacency or superficiality. The proposal continually broke through bottlenecks, reaching an unexpected new height. At the proposal presentation a week later, 3 senior executives from the client side were present. I stood in front of the projector screen, wearing the only decent black dress I owned, specially ironed for the occasion. My palms were sweaty, and my abdomen was tense. Ethan sat diagonally behind me, like a silent mountain. I took a deep breath, opened the PowerPoint presentation, and began my talk. After the presentation, the conference room was silent for a few seconds. The lead client representative, a white-haired, refined old gentleman, was the first to applaud. The matter was settled. The core area design for the Cloud Eco-Resort adopted my proposal. I was appointed one of the principal designers. As the news spread, the way my colleagues at the firm looked at me completely changed. From initial disregard and doubt, it shifted to surprise and respect. After the meeting, Ethan walked over to me. "Well done." Still just 2 words. But he handed me a cup of warm milk. I paused, then took the cup. "Thank you, Mr. Ethan." His gaze swept over my still flat but unmistakably tired abdomen, lingered for a moment, then he said nothing and turned to leave. Holding the warm milk, feeling the warmth spread into my palm, I looked out at the bright sunshine. I knew that the name Grace, after 10 years of silence, had finally made a small splash in this industry again. Even if it was just the beginning. After that, Ethan started giving me more challenging tasks. I gradually adapted to the rhythm. In repeatedly being pushed to my limits and then breaking through them, I rediscovered my design acumen and confidence. But my belly also grew larger day by day. Loose clothes gradually couldn't hide my baby bump. Subtle, probing glances and whispers began in the firm, but I had no time to pay attention. Ethan also seemed to turn a blind eye, assigning tasks and giving critiques as usual. Until one afternoon, as I was rushing to finish an urgent drawing on my laptop, a sudden, fierce contraction hit me, making me instantly curl up, cold sweat streaming down my body. "Grace? What's wrong?" Chloe, from the next workstation, was the first to notice something was off. "I'm fine." I gritted my teeth, trying to push through it. My due date was still more than 2 months away. However, the next wave of stronger contractions mercilessly shattered my hope. "Oh my God! You're bleeding!" Chloe exclaimed, looking at my chair in horror. I looked down and saw a shocking splash of bright red rapidly spreading on my light-colored pants. "Call an ambulance." I was in too much pain to form a complete sentence, and my vision blurred intermittently. The entire office area descended into chaos. Amidst the commotion, a tall figure pushed through the crowd and rushed over. It was Ethan. His face was stern, as I'd never seen it before, his brows htly furrowed. Without a word, he scooped me up into his arms. Leaning against him, the intense pain of contractions intertwined with the dizziness from blood loss, and my consciousness blurred. I could only feel his rapid heartbeat as he ran with me, and the taut line of his jaw. The ambulance arrived downstairs quickly. I was lifted onto a stretcher. Ethan immediately followed me into the ambulance. "Have her family been notified?" the nurse asked. "She has no family." Ethan's voice was somewhat heavy. He then stated my name and age. Gestational week 32 plus, suspected premature labor. On the way to the clinic, I vaguely heard him pull out his phone and make a call. "It's me. Contact the best obstetrics head at the city's maternity hospital, a VIP birthing suite, immediately. Prepare 100,000 for the deposit. Inform Robert." Before my consciousness fully succumbed to darkness, only one thought echoed in my mind: how did he know my gestational week? And so precisely? I woke up again under soft lighting. The air carried a faint scent of disinfectant. I lay in a comfortable hospital bed, and 4 drip in my arm. The intense pain in my abdomen had transformed into continuous, regular contractions, but they were much milder than before. "You're awake?" A deep, familiar voice sounded by the bed. I turned my head. Ethan sat on the single armchair beside the bed, still meticulously dressed, the top button of his dark shirt undone. There were faint dark circles under his eyes, and a hint of imperceptible fatigue in his gaze. "Mr. Ethan." I spoke, my voice hoarse. "Don't speak yet." He stood up, poured a glass of warm water, inserted a straw, and held it to my lips. I was a little taken aback and took a few sips through the straw. The warm water flowed down my parched throat, offering some comfort. "The doctor has checked in. My contractions have been temporarily suppressed, but I must remain on absolute bed rest to safeguard the pregnancy until delivery." He put down his glass. "From now on, all work is on hold. Don't worry about the studio, just focus on resting here." "But," I tried to protest. "No buts," he interrupted, his tone leaving no room for argument. "The studio will cover your expenses up front, as an advance on your project bonus." I was speechless. "Grace," he looked at me, his deep-set eyes sharp with insight, "this isn't the time to be stubborn. Your safety and the baby's are paramount. We'll discuss money later. Also, I've arranged for a nurse to provide 24-hour care. I've already called Professor, he'll come to check on you later." He placed a sticky note with a phone number on the nightstand, then seemed about to leave. "Mr. Ethan," I called out, a mix of emotion swirling inside me. "Thank you. And how did you know my gestational week?" Ethan stopped, but didn't turn around, leaving only his stern profile. "You almost fainted on your interview day." His voice was flat. "Later, HR showed me your medical report, as per company policy. I just have a good memory." With that, he opened the door and walked out. The hospital room fell silent. I cradled my belly, feeling the movement of the little one inside, reflecting on Ethan's words and the fleeting weariness in his eyes. HR shows the boss an employee's medical report as per policy, even down to the gestational week? And that moment of hesitation he had just now. This man, as cold as an iceberg, seemed not as unapproachable as he appeared. In the VIP room, I began a period of bed rest that felt like an eternity. And, the nurse, was professional and kind. Professor visited me a few times, bringing plenty of health supplements, sighing and complaining that Marcus was a scoundrel. Ethan never came back. But every day at 5:30 p.m., Aunt would receive a call punctually. She would report on my condition, blood pressure, temperature, contractions, what I'd eaten, my mental state. I knew who was on the other end of the phone. The studio project seemed mundane. Occasionally, his assistant Chloe would send over some fruit or light, nourishing soup. Chloe looked at me with a mix of curiosity and unspoken questions. The days slipped by filled with apprehension. The night before delivery, I lay in bed, tossing and turning, unable to sleep. Fear of the unknown, anticipation for the baby, and a faint, indescribable loneliness. Finally, the day of delivery arrived. Before entering the operating room, I received a text message from an unknown number, containing only a cold, curt message. Good luck with the surgery. Ethan. My chest felt as if something had gently bumped it. I looked at those few short words and finally replied with just one, okay. The surgery went smoothly. It's a boy. 6 pounds and 2 ounces. When the nurse held him to my face, and his cheek touched my skin, all the pain, grievances, and fear were replaced by an indescribable sense of immense happiness and completeness. I had a child. He was taken by the nurse for cleaning and examination. I was wheeled out of the delivery room, feeling groggy from the anesthesia. In a haze, I thought I saw a tall figure standing at the end of the corridor. Backlit, his face was unclear, but that stern silhouette was unmistakably familiar. Was it Ethan? Before I could see clearly, my consciousness plunged into darkness. When I woke up again, I was back in the hospital room. Sunlight streamed through the curtains, warm and inviting. Where's the baby? My first question was to Aunt, who was by my bed. He's in the newborn nursery next door. He just had some baby formula and is sleeping soundly, Aunt said, smiling. The little guy has strong lungs. He's clearly robust. Just then, there was a gentle knock on the hospital room door. Aunt opened it and stepped aside. Ethan walked in. He wasn't carrying a briefcase, just a very elegant paper bag with the logo of a high-end maternity and baby brand. He wasn't wearing a suit today, a soft, dark gray cashmere sweater considerably softened his usual aloofness. Mr. Ethan, I struggled to sit up. Don't move. He quickly came over, his voice holding a hint of barely perceptible urgency. Stay lying down. He placed the paper bag on the nightstand, just a little something for the baby. I looked into the paper bag. It contained several sets of newborn clothes that looked incredibly soft and comfortable, as well as imported baby care products. All top brands, quite expensive. Thank you, Mr. Ethan, you're being too generous. It's only right, he interrupted, his gaze on my face, seemingly trying to ascertain my condition. How are you feeling? Very well. I smiled. After everything, reborn, and with a son, my mood was lighter and brighter than ever before. The doctor said the baby is very healthy. He nodded, silent for a few seconds, seemingly choosing his words carefully. The cold, decisive, cutthroat businessman seemed awkward now. Have you thought of a name? He asked. A name? I paused. I had been so preoccupied with protecting the pregnancy and the anxiety that I hadn't had time to think. Looking at the brilliant sunlight outside the window, and recalling the hellish yet transformative experience of the past few months, a name instantly popped into my mind. Leo, I said softly. Leo, Ethan repeated softly, something subtly flickering in his deep-set eyes. A good name. Silence settled in the hospital room. Sunlight streamed in quietly. Mr. Ethan, I looked at him and said sincerely, thank you so much for everything during this time. Without you, Leo and I might have, he interrupted, his gaze becoming serious and profound. Don't thank me. You, yourself, are strong enough. He paused, as if making a decision, his voice low and clear. Get plenty of rest. The lead designer position at the studio is being held for you. It will be waiting for your return. Lead designer? I stared at him in shock, wondering if the anesthesia hadn't worn off and I'd misheard him. Leah. D designer for Ethan's firm. That was a position many senior designers only dreamed of. You have the talent, he said with certainty, his tone unwavering. I have faith in you. He glanced at his wristwatch. I have another engagement, so I'll be leaving. Get some good rest. Call me if you need anything. He pointed to the sticky note on the nightstand. With that, he turned and left, his back still straight and stern, but now it seemed to carry a touch more warmth. I leaned against the pillow, looking at the elegant paper bag, then at the bright sunlight outside the window. I could still feel the lingering touch of Leo's little face in my arms. Tears fell without warning. This time, they were scalding. I took 4 months of maternity leave. These 4 months were the busiest yet most fulfilling time of my life. The chaos of being a new mom goes without saying. Feeding, changing diapers, putting him to sleep, every step was a challenge. Leo was a good baby, but an infant 7. Even so, I didn't completely put my work aside. When slept, I opened my laptop to remotely handle some project documents from the studio, keep up with the latest industry trends, and sketch out ideas. Ethan was true to his word. He really did keep the lead designer position vacant, and he would email me for my input on important preliminary project work. He even had his assistant deliver a high-end mobile workstation to me, making it easier to operate large design software from home. Professor came to visit Leo and me, holding the little guy, unable to put him down, and commented, "Ethan, that guy, he looks cold, but his heart is warm. He's really nurturing you like a valuable asset." I understood clearly. Ethan's special attention to me certainly involved his respect for Professor, but more so, he saw my value. He was a shrewd businessman and an astute design visionary. He was investing in my potential. This regard gave me more dignity than any sympathy. I had to grow stronger, faster. On the day when Leo was 3 months old, I officially returned to work. Returning to the studio, things felt different. My colleagues' gazes were no longer curious or probing, but held a natural respect. "Good morning, Director. Director, how's little Leo doing? Director, here are the initial topographic documents for the Oceanwood Hotel project. Mr. Ethan said he wanted you to review them first." Each director left me a little disoriented. Lead designer meant greater responsibilities, and a heavier burden. The pressure remained, but this time I walked with calm confidence. I dedicated myself completely to work. During the day, I handled tasks efficiently, and I went home on time after work to be with Leo. Ethan and I also developed a peculiar unspoken understanding. At work, he was the most demanding superior, meticulous, and striving for perfection. During design discussions, fierce arguments and unyielding stances were the norm. But in private, he showed a clumsy tenderness towards Leo. Days flew by in a blur of work and family time. The new Oceanwood Hotel project was a huge success, becoming a new coastal landmark and winning several international design awards. My name, Grace, became widely recognized in the design world. The frumpy housewife once disparaged by Marcus was now a highly sought-after rising star in design, the undisputed lead designer of Ethan's studio. Leo was also 3 years old, enrolled in preschool, a lively, outgoing, charming sweet talker. Life seemed to have fallen into place, peaceful and fulfilling. Until that day. The Architecture and Design was held in the city, a top event in the global design community. Ethan's architectural firm became the focus with its 2 major projects, Cloud and Oceanwood Hotel. As principal designers, Ethan and I were both scheduled to attend important awards galas and a panel discussion. Such an occasion naturally required appropriate attire. I took Leo to a familiar high-end custom shop to try on the altered gown. Leo was playing with building blocks in the children's play area. As I was checking the fit of the waistline in the full-length mirror, a familiar yet unfamiliar male voice, filled with extreme shock and disbelief, sounded behind me. "Grace?" My body stiffened abruptly. In the mirror, reflected a few meters behind me, was a man in a sharp suit, with slicked-back hair, looking well-maintained. It was Marcus. Beside him, clinging to his arm, was Tiffany, dressed in a sexy evening gown. Her smile froze instantly when she saw me, and a flicker of panic and jealousy crossed her eyes. I slowly turned around, my face devoid of emotion, looking at them calmly. "Is it really you?" Marcus's gaze swept over me like a searchlight, filled with scrutiny and a sickening kind of admiration. Today, I was no longer the worn-out and disheveled, frumpy housewife of years past. A custom-made champagne satin mermaid gown perfectly accentuated my well-recovered post-pregnancy curves. My long hair was swept up, revealing my slender neck and collarbones. My makeup was delicate and elegant, my eyes calm and confident, exuding the aura of a successful career woman. "Mr. Marcus, Ms. Tiffany, long time no see," I said flatly, as if greeting strangers. "Grace, you." Tiffany managed a stiff smile. "You've changed so much, so beautiful." "Thank you." I nodded slightly, not wanting to say more, and prepared to go to the children's play area to call Leo. "Wait." Marcus stepped forward, blocking my path. His gaze became complex. "I heard you're doing well now. Working as the lead designer at Ethan's firm?" he asked, his tone probing. "Ethan, that guy, he's notoriously difficult. You must have some talent." I said nothing, just looked at him coldly. "Grace," he suddenly softened his tone, his eyes taking on a trace of self-professed nostalgic affection. "Back then, I was foolish. All these years, I've regretted it. Actually, in my heart, Mommy." A clear, bright child's voice erupted his repulsive performance. Leo rushed over like a little cannonball, hugging my legs, his big eyes warily staring at Marcus and Tiffany. "Mommy, who are this uncle and auntie? Are they bothering you?" Marcus and Tiffany's expressions were a sight to behold. Marcus stared intently at Leo's small face, which bore some resemblance to mine but was more handsome, especially his bright eyes. His pupils contracted sharply, and his face turned extremely ugly. He seemed to realize something, then abruptly looked up at me, his eyes filled with shock and accusation. He is. Tiffany covered her mouth. I bent down and picked up Leo, who naturally hugged my neck. Leo, these are some old friends of Mommy's, I explained calmly, then looked at Marcus, a cold, curved smile touching my lips. Mr. Marcus, this is my son, Leo. Leo, Marcus murmured, his gaze sweeping back and forth between Leo and me. You, when did you? That seems irrelevant to you, Mr. Marcus, I cut him off, my voice as cold and hard as ice. Please move. We're in a hurry. Grace. Marcus's voice suddenly rose. You played me? When we divorced, I said, holding Leo and straightening my back. I only took the money that was rightfully mine, nothing more. As for my body, the child in my womb who is mine, and my life, they have absolutely nothing to do with you, Marcus. Marcus was so choked he couldn't speak, his face alternating between red and white. Mommy, Leo hugged my neck tightly, his small face pressed against mine, whispering, I don't like that uncle, he's mean. It's okay, Leo, we'll ignore him. I kissed my son's forehead, holding him, and walked past the pale-faced Marcus and the jealousy-distorted Tiffany. The awards gala was glittering with stars. The Cloud Project, without a doubt, won the highest honor, the Golden Award. Under the spotlight, as one of the principal designers, I stood on stage beside Ethan. Below us was a sea of spectators and countless flashing cameras. The host enthusiastically introduced the project's concept and innovations. Then it was time for the acceptance speeches. Ethan gestured for me to speak first. I walked to the microphone, the lights a bit blinding. I squinted slightly, my gaze sweeping over the front row of the guest seating. Marcus and Tiffany were there, as expected. Marcus stared at me, his eyes filled with an indescribable complexity. Tiffany, on the other hand, had an undisguised look of jealousy and bitterness. I drew my gaze back, facing the microphone, my voice clear and calm, carrying the steady strength of one who had weathered many storms. This award belongs to the entire team. The initial design concept for Cloud was to tell a story about ruin and rebirth. I paused, my gaze once again intentionally and unintentionally brushing over Marcus's stiff face. Once, I too was amidst ruins. Marital infidelity, a neglected career, a lost sense of self. It was like a bottomless quarry, swallowing all light. The audience grew quiet. But ruins are never the end. My voice grew stronger, carrying a power that penetrated hearts. As long as there's a flicker of an unyielding flame in your heart, the most brilliant flower of life will blossom from the ruins. Thank you all. Thunderous applause erupted, lasting for a long time. I saw Ethan standing beside me, a very subtle but genuine curve to his lips. He looked at me, his deep-set eyes reflecting the dazzling lights, and my reflection. I also saw Marcus's face in the audience, completely ashen-faced. Tiffany's expression beside him was even more grotesquely distorted. After the awards ceremony, it was the evening reception. I was holding a champagne glass, chatting with a few international colleagues, when Marcus once again persistently reappeared before me. Tiffany wasn't with him. Grace. He held a drink, attempting to force a suave smile, but it looked incredibly stiff. Congratulations. Your speech earlier was very impressive. Thank you. My tone was distant. Can we talk privately? He lowered his voice, with a hint of pleading. Just a few minutes. For old time's sake. Looking at the calculation and rekindled greed in his eyes, which he thought he had hidden so well, I found it incredibly ironic. Mr. Marcus, I don't think we have anything to discuss. Grace. He grew a little agitated, reaching out to grab my arm. A large, distinctively jointed hand moved faster, firmly grasping Marcus's wrist with such force that Marcus's face changed. It was Ethan. He had walked over at some point, his tall frame exuding an invisible pressure, blocking Marcus from me. His face was stern, his eyes sharp as ice, as he looked at Marcus. Mr. Marcus, show some respect. Ethan's voice was not loud, but carried an unquestionable authority. I don't wish for any unpleasant incidents to occur. Marcus was intimidated by Ethan's presence, his face turning pale before he awkwardly withdrew his hand. Mr. Ethan, you misunderstand. I merely wanted to catch up with an old friend. Catch up? Ethan's lips curled into a cold, sharp curve. Mr. Marcus, I think it would be better for you to focus on your own projects. I heard your company's latest development on the east side is facing considerable trouble. Marcus's face turned completely black. That project on the east side was his company's major focus for the year, and it was indeed embroiled in significant trouble due to design flaws and construction issues. Ethan was delivering a blatant public humiliation. Marcus's fingers trembled with rage. Ethan, however, no longer looked at him. He naturally turned sideways and, with an utterly natural and protective gesture, put his arm around my waist. His palm was warm, the heat radiating through the thin fabric of my gown. Director, Chairman is over there and would like to discuss the sustainable design details of the Oceanwood Hotel. Shall we go? He looked down at me, his tone inquiring, but his eyes held a gentle authority that brooked no refusal. I instantly understood his intention, and a warmth spread through my heart. I nodded in agreement, yes. Just like that, Ethan, in an absolutely possessive manner, held me and walked calmly towards the other end of the ballroom, under Marcus's almost blazing gaze. I didn't look back, but I knew that venomous gaze still followed us. The reception reached its peak. Elegance and glitter, champagne glasses clinking. I excused myself to the restroom, temporarily leaving the noisy center. Standing by the huge floor-to-ceiling window, looking out at the glittering city night view, I let out a soft sigh. Dealing with such occasions was more exhausting than drawing designs. Mommy. A clear call, filled with excitement. I turned in surprise. I saw Chloe, Ethan's assistant, walking towards me, holding Leo's hand. He was dressed in a small formal outfit. Leo? How did you get here? I picked up my son, delighted. Uncle said Mommy was wonderful today and won a big trophy. Leo wanted to see Mommy get the award too. Leo hugged my neck and said in his childish voice, Mommy, is that shiny golden thing a trophy? Can touch it? Of course you can. I smiled and carried him over. Leo reached out his small hand, carefully touching the cool trophy, his little face full of awe. Wow. So cool. Mommy is the best. Leo will be amazing too, someday. I kissed his little face. Director, Chloe walked over, smiling. Mr. Ethan was worried about Leo being home alone, so he specially asked me to pick him up. He said he wanted the little guy to experience Mommy's moment in the spotlight. He's networking over there and will be over shortly. A wave of warmth surged through me. Ethan, he was always like this, seemingly cold, yet so thoughtful in a way that truly warmed my heart. Mommy, look, there's so much food over there. Leo pointed to the buffet station not far away, his eyes lit up. Little foodie, Mommy will take you. I put him down and was about to get a serving spoon. I'll do it. A deep voice sounded behind me. Ethan had walked over at some point. He naturally picked up the serving tongs, carefully placed the smallest strawberry mousse on a small plate, and then knelt down in front of Leo. His tall frame knelt, bringing his eyes level with Leo's. This action made several guests who noticed us glance over. Who had ever seen Ethan, the ice, kneeling to coax a child? Leo, you can only have a small piece. If you eat too much, it'll hurt your teeth. He handed the small plate to Leo, his voice uncharacteristically gentle, even with a hint of coaxing. Thank you, Uncle. Leo happily took the plate, used his small spoon to dig out a tiny bit, and contentedly popped it into his mouth. A subtle but genuine smile touched Ethan's stern face. He reached out, and with utter naturalness, used his fingertip to wipe a dab of whipped cream from the corner of Leo's mouth. Just then, an extremely discordant voice, laced with sharp anger, cut in, Grace. I knew I'd find you here. We both looked up. Marcus had somehow managed to shake off Tiffany. His gaze swept back and forth between me, Leo, and Ethan, filled with fury and jealousy. So that's how you climbed your way to Ethan, by relying on this bastard. Grace, you really have some tricks up your sleeve. Marcus's voice wasn't loud, but it was like a viper's hiss, utterly venomous. The two words bastard struck my heart like a poisoned dagger. My blood rushed to my head, and I turned cold all over. The trace of softness on Ethan's face instantly froze. He slowly stood up. His eyes, icy cold, pierced Marcus. Marcus, Ethan's voice was low. Say that again. A powerful aura descended, and the air around us seemed to solidify. The originally noisy ballroom instantly fell silent, all eyes fixated on us. Marcus was intimidated by Ethan's presence, his face paling, but alcohol had clouded his judgment. He pointed at Leo, his voice trembling with agony. Had I on? Did I say something wrong, Mr. Ethan? Don't let this woman fool you. She hid her pregnancy from me when we divorced. Who knows whose bastard this child is? A clear, resounding slap interrupted Marcus's rant. It wasn't Ethan. It was me. I had put all my strength into it, and my palm stung painfully. Marcus's head was knocked to the side by my slap. He stared at me in disbelief, his eyes wide with shock. You dared to hit me? That's for your foul mouth. My chest heaved violently, my voice trembling with extreme anger, yet it was exceptionally clear, ringing through the silent venue. Marcus, listen carefully, and I ask everyone present to bear witness. This child, Leo, is my own flesh and blood, conceived while I, Grace, was still legally married to you, Marcus. Every word I spoke was resounding. Before we divorced, I already had the prenatal test results. It was you, Marcus, who committed marital infidelity with my best friend, Tiffany, and I caught you caught red-handed. It was you, Marcus, who personally told me I was just a frumpy housewife who only cared about the kitchen. It was you, Marcus, who personally forfeited the right to know this child existed. It was you who abandoned my son and me. I spoke faster and faster, my voice growing louder and louder, the 4 years of suppressed anger, grievance, and resentment erupting like a volcano at that moment. For these 4 years, I carried this child alone, almost had a miscarriage protecting this pregnancy alone, gave birth to him alone, and raised him alone. Where were you, Marcus? Did you give him a single cent of child support? Did you ever bother to check on his well-being? I suddenly pulled a laminated piece of paper, its edges slightly worn, from my clutch bag, and held it high. Under the lights, that prenatal test results from 4 years ago was unmistakably clear. The names, the date, and the image of the small gestational sac were, under the astonished gazes of everyone, in disbelief. Abel, look closely, Marcus. This is the proof of the bastard you speak of. The entire hall fell into dead silence. Only the frantic camera flashes could be heard. Marcus was utterly stunned. He stared fixedly at the prenatal test results, all color drained from his face, his lips trembling, unable to utter a single word. Tiffany had squeezed closer at some point. Seeing the prenatal test results, her face instantly turned ashen-faced, and she instinctively tried to shrink back into the crowd. As for Mr. Ethan, I put down the prenatal test results and turned to Ethan beside me, my voice becoming calm and firm. He is my mentor in my career, my most respected superior. Not everyone, Marcus, has a mind only filled with vulgar thoughts. You, Marcus, from the moment you signed the divorce agreement 4 years ago, you completely forfeited the right to be his father. Please, get out of our lives, forever. Having said that, I no longer looked at Marcus's thunderstruck, ashen-faced, humiliated state. I turned. Ethan instinctively reached out and put his arm around my shoulder, protecting my son and me with an absolutely protective and supportive stance, leading us away from the suffocating clamor under countless gazes. Behind us, I vaguely heard Marcus's broken roar and Tiffany's panicked cries. But all of that no longer concerned us. Stepping out of the ballroom, the cool night air washed over us. Leo clung to my shoulder, quietly sobbing. Mommy, that bad uncle was so scary. Don't be afraid, Leo. I gently patted his back, soothing him softly. Mommy's here. Leo nodded hard, his voice tearful. Leo has mommy. And has uncle. Ethan, who had been silently guarding us, paused. He looked down at Leo's tear-filled eyes, and the stern features on his face seemed to soften slightly. He reached out and wiped away Leo's tears. His movements were still a little clumsy, but they held a strange tenderness. He acknowledged, his voice exceptionally deepened. D strong in the silent night, Leo has mommy, and he also has uncle. He looked up at me. Then, he naturally reached out and adjusted my slipped shawl, his fingertips inadvertently brushing my shoulder, leaving a warm sensation. His movements were light and gentlemanly, yet they were like a faint current, instantly coursing through my skin. The night breeze blew, carrying the scent of early summer flowers. I held Leo, and Ethan stood beside us. Not far away, the ballroom was still brilliantly lit, with faint clamor reaching us. But at this moment, around us, a small, quiet world had formed, belonging only to the three of us.